So let's have a look at this example first. We're going to write something which I like to call the grocery list, which is basically keeping track of all of our different information. So on the right-hand side, we're going to write, we have P, A, N, and I. Those are the things that we're going to care about. Okay. So we've got 100,000 Rand is invested in a pension fund. The total in the pension fund after 10 years is 250,000. So let's start breaking this up. We've got a whole bunch of information so far. We've got this 100,000, which is invested, and it becomes 250,000. So which one of those is A, which is our starting amount, and which one of those is A, which is our end amount, and which one of those is P, which is our starting amount? Yeah, sure. I'll go back. Good. Okay. So this is what we're starting with. That's our start. So that means it's going to be P. So we have 100,000 for P. And this is what we're going to end with, which means our A is going to be 250,000. Then it tells us that it was in that pension fund for 10 years and we are compounding annually. So we're going to be all this means over here is it's telling us that it's compound interest. So by saying it's compound interest, we know we're going to use the compound interest formula. And they're telling us it's annual, which means it's only going to happen every year. So because it says 10 years, our N is going to be 10 because it's going to happen once every year. And we don't know what our interest rate is. That is our unknown. Now that you've done your little grocery list over here and you were smart enough to know that that was compound interest, so you've got your equation over there, you can literally just input those values into your equation, do some clever manipulation with your calculator, and get your final answer. So I'm going to give you some time to work this one through because it is obviously a little bit harder than some of the ones that you would have done last year. But let's see if anyone can get me a beautiful answer. Remember, I want it rounded off to 2 decimal places. And your interest needs to be a percentage. Those are all of my hints. And then Abu, once we're finished with this question, I'll go up so you can get a screenshot. Two decimal places, Boo. You're making it. So the reason it's compounded is because they've told us that the interest is compounded annually. So they always have to tell you in the question what type of interest it is. It's okay, Lalika. I promise I will go through it with you. I'm just going to give you guys a couple more minutes so I don't rush anyone. So I'm going to give you 2 more minutes and then I'm going to go through this one nice and slow. Yeah, Lika, that is too high. We definitely need a smaller number. Interesting. Oh yeah, that answer is screaming to me that you rounded off answers earlier in the question because your decimal places aren't right. We've done half the battle. Now we have to just rely on our calculator work and not running off too early. Okay, one more minute. It's okay. And I promise I'll go through it. And then ask questions. If when I'm going through it, if there's something you don't understand, ask. That's better, Lika. Okay. So let's start filling in our information. We're going to literally use our grocery list and we're going to put it into our equation. So we have 250,000 is equal to 100,000. 1 plus I, which we don't know, to the power of 10. All right. First thing we're going to do is we're going to divide both sides by 100,000. So that those two cancel, and we are left with 2,5 on this side, and that's equal to 1 plus I to the power of 10. Now, if I don't want it to be to the power of 10, I'm going to have to root to the 10th on the other side. So that can cancel with that. And I've got my 2,5 rooted. That gives me the answer of 1,095,958. And I want to keep those decimal places so that my final answer is correct. And that is equal to 1 plus I. Now we're trying to isolate I. So we're going to get to a different color so it's easier to see. We're going to minus 1 from this side and we're going to minus 1 from that side. So my 1's now cancel. And I'm left with I, which is equal to 0,09595. At this point, we've got a decimal, but we need to make it a percentage. So we're going to times it by 100. And we're going to land up with 9,5958, blah, 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 percent. But we want to round it off to 2 decimal places. So we're going to say, therefore, I is equal to 9,60%. Okay, so Uyanda, does it make sense now, or do you still not? Are you not sure how something happened? Okay. So we just multiplied by too much. Okay, that's okay. That's a pretty easy mistake to fix. Theo, does it make sense now though? Because all we did is we went from our decimal, that's our decimal over there, to our percentage. Yeah. Very normal thing to do. but you won't make the mistake in the next one. So you'll be good to go. Nice job. This was as hard as it could get in grade 10. So yeah, so Teboho, the reason we do is because generally they want your interest. When they say interest rate like this, they're wanting it as a percentage. Always in a percentage, yeah. If you want to take a screenshot, please feel free. And then I'm just going to zoom up to the summary quickly so Abu can take a screenshot. And then we're going to do our second question. Yeah, always times 100 when we're dealing with I. Okay. Abu, screenshot away. Good. Okay. Let's do our next question. So let's break it down again. We're going to get very good at this. We're going to write our little grocery list, A, P, I, N. Okay. 100,000 Rand is invested in a pension fund, and that is what is being invested. Okay. The total in the pension fund after a certain number of years is 287,500 Rand. The interest was 12.5% per annum. So that's per year. Simple interest. So we know we're dealing with simple interest. So we're going to write down our simple interest formula. How many years did the money get invested for? Okay, good. Klunani, yes. This is our P. This is our A. This is our I. So we've got 287,500,100,000. I is 12.5%, or you can write it as 12.5 over 100, or you can write it as a decimal. So you could also write it as 0.125. Any one of those options is fine. And N, we don't know. So just for clarity, these are, I don't know why I thought the highlighter would let me highlight, because it never lets me highlight. Those are all just different options. So you don't need to write all three of these. You could either write it as a percentage, or you could write it as a fraction, or you could write it as a decimal, whichever one you feel more comfortable with. Or sometimes your teachers, they always use the same one. And so then it's like, that's what you're used to seeing in class. So use the one that you feel comfortable with. Okay, Abu's coming in with an answer. Let's see if we agree or disagree. I'm saying nothing. Kelly and Abu are both on the same, and Theo coming in with 15. 15 what? 15 goats, 15 cows, 15 what? Thank you. 15 horses, okay. Okay, one more minute. Okay, so we have our grocery list, which means we can just put it into our formula that we know is right because it said simple interest. So we're going to say our end amount is equal to our starting amount, 1 plus, I use percentage, so I'm going to write 12.5%, but please make sure you write the one that you're comfortable with, times n. Okay, first step, we're going to divide both sides by that 100,000 so that they go away. And we're left with 2,875 is equal to 1 plus 12.5% times n. Next step, we're going to move this 1 over. So we're going to move it over and minus 1. So we'll have 1,875 is equal to 12.5% times n, which means we then just divide by our percentage. And those two can cancel. And we see, therefore, n is equal to 15 years. Now, later, those questions are going to get a bit nastier. And they're going to have decimals, and we're going to have to figure out months. But for the moment, I thought let's keep it nice and simple. Okay, so for those of you who remember nothing of financial maths when we started this lesson half an hour ago, are we feeling in a better place? Is it bringing back memories? Do we know what we're doing? Do we have any questions? Good. Okay. Excellent. We under. That's a huge amount of money. It's more than doubled. It's almost tripled. Oh, can you see, Leo? You saying nope as in it's not making more sense. Is there something I can do to make it make more sense? Where are you getting stuck? Or are you saying nope that you could never wait 15 years? Okay. No, that's okay. As long as what I'm saying is starting to make some sort of sense, and we're making progress, that's all that matters. But if you're feeling completely lost and you don't know what I'm saying, please let me know so that I can help. How can you say just 187,000? 187,000 is a huge amount of money. Guys are cracking me up. Okay. In any economy, it's a lot of money. Okay, next part we have to start dealing with is our different types of interest rates. So the last questions, I was nice. Your interest was only happening annually, but now in grade 11, remember I said that it can change. So that's what we're going to talk about. Interest rates are generally quoted as a per annum. So that means that they are giving it to us as a per year amount. So they'll say 10% per year or per annum. But the interest can be added more frequently than once a year. It could be, and we say compounded. So it could be happening every month or twice a year or quarterly. So if it's happening quarterly, then it's happening 4 times a year. And so as an example, if the banks gave me an interest rate of 12% per annum, compounded semi-annually, what is that telling me? Semi-annually is telling me that it's happening twice a year. So we're going to take our 12% and we're going to divide it by 2. because I'm going to have 2 payments in the year. Which means every 6 months, I'm going to get 6% interest. Before I move on to effective and nominal interest, does that make sense? Or does that not make sense? If this said, instead of semi-annually, if this said quarterly, then I would take that 12% and I would divide it by 4, and I would see that I'm going to get 3%, and it's going to happen 4 times a year. Okay. Good. So this breaks into 2 different types of sort of interest that we speak about. Effective interest rate means that our time periods match, essentially. So what I mean by that is if I said 12% per annum compounded annually. So per annum compounded annually, they match, they're the same. So they're saying it's compounded per, and I know I'm only doing it once a year. But if I'm talking about a nominal interest rate, then my time periods don't match. And these, I know it seems like I'm just giving you definitions, but in grade 11, there are questions where you have to convert from nominal interest to effective interest. And so you have to know what the words mean because they'll be in some questions. So as an example here, if I had 12% per annum compounded monthly. This is per annum. This is monthly, which means they do not match. That is literally the only sort of, that's the main thing you need to know between effective interest and nominal interest. If it's effective interest, the time periods are the same. If it's nominal interest, the time periods are different. That's all. There are lots of complicated ways to explain this or to go with the definitions, but this is the only thing that I need you to know for it. Okay. In that case, let's start a fun question. All right. I don't want to. I don't know. Let's do this. Oh, and those are all case 2. Okay. Question 4. Okay. Let's just edit this question slightly. Give you. Okay, cool. Let's break this one up a little bit. We're going to do exactly the same thing. A, P, I, N. This one's not a scary one. So we've got 12% per annum that is being compounded annually. Oh no, this question is, let's not do this question. That's not going to do anything good for you. Let's do this one. That one's just going to be repetitive, I think. Okay, cool. So this one's got multiple questions in it, but we will be absolutely fine in all of them. we've got 1,000 Rand that's being invested into a savings account, and the interest is being compounded monthly at 15% per annum. Okay. What percentage interest is compounded each month? That is your first question. And you've got B on the board as well. So see if you can, oh yeah, I can zoom in for you. Does that help? Great, you guys are doing super well. So what percentage, if it was being compounded each month, we've got that 15%, and we're going to be dividing it by 12 because it's each month. Oh, sorry. Oh, there's now bears. Hello, bears. Okay. For question 2, we need to think about our grocery list. So for question 2, we need to think about what's our P, what's our A, what's our I, what's our N. We know that it's being compounded, which means we're going to be using our compound interest formula. That is all the help I'm going to give you. See if you can figure that one out for me. I don't know why you did that. Yeah, Tabilka, you can actually probably leave it as the 15/12, but I think because they said what percentage interest is, we should probably get it as a number. There are exactly 12 months in a year, yes. But now they want to know how much money is going to be in the account after 6 months, remembering that it's going to be compounded each month. Take your time. No need to rush. Okay, well, let's start writing out a few things over here. We know that our starting amount is 1,000 Rand. Okay, we don't know what our end amount is going to be. What do we know about our interest? You've just worked it out. Your interest is sitting at 1.25%, or you could write it as the 15% over 12. And how many times are we going to have that interest happen? 6 times, because it's being compounded monthly. And we want to know after 6 months. So this is where that why in grade 10, we shouldn't learn it as N as years. N is the number of times interest is added. Yes. So this is the interest that's going to be added each month, and it's going to happen 6 times. You guys are very, very close. I think, Uya, you and Uyanda, you have both gotten the exact same answer as me. Yeah, the 1077,38, that's perfect. That's the correct answer. So we're going to pop it into our compound interest formula. So our A is what we don't know. Our P is 1,000 Rand. 1 plus I, which I'm going to write as 15% over 12. And now the number of times that we are having it compounded is 6. So that's the number of times we'll get our interest. We can stick this straight into our calculator, exactly like that. And we'll get a total of 1077,38. And that is going to be the amount that is in the account after 6 months. So the reason I'm saying 15 over 12, because these two are the same as each other. The reason we're dividing it by 12 is because it's being compounded monthly. So it's not 15% anymore. It's 15% over 12, because this part over here, that 12, is because it's being compounded monthly. Yeah, so January, you invest 100 and the money interest rate is 2%. Yes, but like that all happens, that interest on interest on interest, that happens in this formula. This formula is accounting for that.
A heritage site in Alexandra. So
it's exactly what you're saying. It's just, it is happening within this formula.
But so,
Khulani, we don't want to divide by 6 because then we're saying that it's being compounded every 2 months within the year. So you would still get an answer, it just wouldn't be the correct one. Yep, absolutely. But remember, that's why this says percentage. So another way of writing 1,25% is 0,0125. That will mean the same. The N, this was the problem with grade 10. In grade 10, you're taught that N is years, but N is not years. N is the number of times interest is added. And in this case, interest is being added 6 times because it's being compounded monthly. But don't worry, if this is feeling confusing, that is completely okay. We haven't done these before. This is the first one like this. So don't panic. We're going to do lots more like this. Okay, this will be some good practice here. Calculate the money in the account after 12 months. So almost everything is the same. We're just changing one thing. Okay. Don't forget your grocery list. I know it's pretty much the same. So now our starting amount is still 1,000 Rand. My interest is still the same because it's still being compounded monthly. But now I won't have added interest 6 times. I will have added interest 12 times. So now my n is 12. So we put everything into the formula exactly the same way. We just have a different n value. And our final answer here, oh, yeah, I'm listening. If we use it as per annum with the 15% and we use n as 1, yeah, it won't be the same, no. You can try. Give it a try and tell me what number you get. You should get less. Okay. Last question of this question, and then we're going to try a different one, is to determine the effective annual interest rate. So this is actually kind of similar to what you were asking, Abu. So what this means is, just if I had to explain this in a slightly different way, is when we're trying to, we want the effective interest rate. So we want to have the percentage as a per annum amount if it was compounded yearly, right? We want to get the same amount. So in my grocery list, my A, I want that same amount that I have over here. I'm also still going to be starting with 1,000 Rand. I'm now only going to be getting interest once a year because I'm compounding yearly, and my I value, I don't know. So now we're saying, what would my interest rate have to be if I was compounding annually to get this exact same amount of money? That's what this question is asking us. So Yanda, effective interest rate means that the percentage per annum and the fact that it would be compounded annually, that time frame is the same, right? In the previous one, we've been working with nominal. So we were having an amount that we have a percentage per annum, which was our 15% per annum, but it's being compounded monthly. Now we want to say, what would that percentage be if we were only compounding once in a year? What would that percentage have to be in order for me to get the same amount of money? That's what this is looking at. So let me write some things out here. We're working with our compound interest formula. Okay. We want our A to be the same amount that we had in the previous question. We want our original investment is still 1,000 Rand. We still have the number 1 as the number 1. We don't know what our interest rate is going to be, but now we're only going to be compounding it once because it's going to be happening annually. So it's only going to be once. So I'm going to divide both sides by 1,000. I don't need to worry because it was to the power of 1. So that makes life easy. So I can just minus 1. And then remember, we need it as a percentage. So we're going to times it by 1,000, which means my interest would be 16,08%. So if I wanted to have the same offer, if I had, let's write the 2 different options. Option 1 was 15% per annum, compounded monthly. And option 2 would be 16,08% per annum, compounded annually. That's what the 2 differences would be. Make sense? Does it make a bit more sense? Okay. Let me zoom out so you can take a screenshot. Here we go. Okay. Let me just do one question at a time. Okay. New question. You have invested 15,000 Rand in a bank that is earning 12% interest per annum. Calculate the value of the investment after 5 years if it is being compounded annually. So I'm not going to tell you your grocery list. We know that it's being compounded annually. So that tells you what formula you should be using. Think about what your grocery list is going to be. Think about what your I is going to be. Think about what your N is going to be. And see if you can figure this one out. Quite a big number, Boo. I think you might be... No, I'm happy. Okay, 1 more minute for you to finish. Remember, with financial maths, you always have to have 2 decimal places. If you don't have 2 decimal places, they legitimately take a mark off because it's money. Okay, so we know we're working with our compound interest formula. So A is equal to P1 plus I to the power of N. Let's write in our values over here. We know that we are investing 15,000. So that's going to be our P, 12% per annum. So my I is 12%, or you could write it as a decimal. And I want to know the value after 5 years, which means that I'm going to have my interest done every 5 years. Yeah, but you can transfer, like if I was working on like internet banking, I can transfer 13 cents. So I can't do it in cash, but I could do it digitally. Every cent counts, exactly. So A is what we don't know. So I'm just going to put those values straight in. We've got 1 plus 0.12 to the power of 5, and we get our beautiful answer. Don't forget your Rand sign, 26,453 Rand and 13 cents. There was actually there was a corruption story. I think it was in the States. There was a waitress who was, I think she was rounding up the cents of every bill that she gave. So if it was like 35 cents, she rounded it up to 50, and she kept all of the extra cents, and she landed up making a huge amount of money. I mean, she did also land up going to jail for fraud, but that is a clear example that every cent counts. Yeah, creative. Yeah, it's quite asshole. Okay. Next one. Oh, did I write it the wrong way around? Yeah, sorry. I did write it the wrong way around. Thank you. Next one, you're using very similar values, but now you're saying, what if it is compounded semi-annually? So semi-annually, all that means, what does this mean? How many times in a year would my interest be compounded? 2. So now this is going to affect N and I. It's going to affect both of those. Good. 12% over 2. I like it. You are not bad at math. Seeing some good answers. Yes, good, Abu, absolutely. So A, we still don't know. Our P is still 15,000. Our I is now the 12% over 2, whichever way you want to write that. And my N, I'm going to be doing 2 payments per year, but it's happening over 5 years. So my 2 payments per year times my 5 years is going to give me 10 times that my interest is going to be charged. So now I have my N value. Once we have our grocery list complete, we can just stick it straight into our formula and get our answer. Yay! Look at you all smashing financial maths. Okay. What if my interest is compounded quarterly? So quarterly means that I'm going to have 4 payments in a year. You guys are too smart. It's good though. Good. Yay. We are going to smash financial maths. So we're going to, I think on Thursday, we'll finish off questions like this. We'll do slightly harder ones, and then we can start moving into timelines, which are fun. All right. So what would my I be? What is my I in this current situation?
What is my I in this current situation?
No, don't oh no me. I promise I'm going to make them fun.
No, don't oh no me.
What is my I?
What is my I?
Good. It's my 12% divided by 4. And my N is I'm having 4 payments a year for 5 years, which means that now becomes 20. Because I'm going to have interest done 20 times. We pop it into our formula. So we have our 15,000, 1 plus 12% over 4 to the power of 20. And we get the beautiful answer of, ooh, why am I writing a 1? Because I'm losing my mind. 27,091 Rand and 67 cents. So you can times it by a quarter. So for that, what you could do is you could say 12% times a quarter, but that's the same as just dividing it by 4. So again, typical for the previous one, you can times it by a half. I always just find it easier to take the percentage and divide it by the number of times in the year that it's going to happen.